This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A new report shows Manitoba's first mobile overdose prevention site is saving and changing lives. Sunshine House has been operating at the downtown site for more than a year. It's a place where people have been able to use and test drugs in the care of peers. As the CBC's Rosanna Hempel reports, it's just received a glowing third-party review.
Sunshine House has been running its mobile overdose prevention site out of this RV in downtown Winnipeg. People have been able to test and use drugs here since October 2022. A new third-party report on the project's first year of operation says the site has been a success.
It exceeded almost every single benchmark and expectation that it set out for itself.
People who use drugs at MOPS, 100% of them reported that they had a positive behavior or health outcome because of MOPS.
Sunshine House announced and celebrated those wins at Thunderbird House Thursday.
This program is the perfect example of the magic that can happen when you give people who use drugs the opportunities and the agency and the respect they deserve.
The review from Lark Consulting says the site had more than 26,000 visits from October 2022 to October 2023. About 7,000 of them were from people who used drugs. There were 20 overdoses and no deaths. The report also credits the site with cleaning up the neighborhood and cutting healthcare costs.
The pressure on the community organizations to recognize and be the de facto drug consumption space diminishes.
Main Street Project next door says the changes have been dramatic.
There's lots of amazing ways it helps. One, we now have a service to direct people who need the service too. So where they may have been using in our back alley or around or in our washrooms, we can be like, you don't have to do this in an unsafe way. Here's a way to go do that.
Preliminary data from the province says 445 Manitobans had a drug-related death last year.
None of those deaths took place at the mobile overdose prevention site.
The executive director of Sunshine House, Levi Foy, says their site is just one part of a needed network to tackle the drug crisis.
We cannot do this in the capacity that we're doing it now because it is a highly imperfect model, and we're doing it because we have to, but it is not sustainable.
Sunshine House wants to see a permanent supervised consumption site downtown. The organization is among a group waiting on the province to approve their proposal. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
CBC News has learned Winnipeg police executed search warrants at foster homes that house children in care. This comes weeks after the province discovered the operators were giving cannabis to kids. The I-Team's Caroline Bargout has that story.
Last Friday, Winnipeg police officers walked into a number of Spirit Rising House foster homes and group homes with search warrants in hand. Workers tell CBC News those same officers walked out with computers and other items.
The Winnipeg Police Child Abuse Unit has been investigating allegations that workers were instructed to give cannabis to underage kids in the care of Child and Family Services that were living at Spirit Rising House homes. Police wouldn't comment about the search warrants because the investigation is still ongoing. Spirit Rising House is a Winnipeg-based for-profit company. It ran 9 foster homes and 2 specialized group homes for 34 high-risk youth in CFS care before the government cut ties with it in February. A former worker says she was recently interviewed by police. CBC News is not identifying her because she's afraid speaking out will prevent her from getting another job working with kids in care. She said, "They asked me what my experience was with providing weed. They asked me about what the girls were given in terms of grocery money, allowance, clothing money, rec money. The police also asked her about programming and if therapeutic supports were being offered." A provincial spokesperson says Families Minister Nahanni Fontaine is aware of the ongoing investigation and that any questions about it should go to police.
The province says its #1 priority is ensuring the safety of children as they transition out of Spirit Rising House into appropriate placements. The company wouldn't comment on the search warrants or the ongoing police investigation. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipeg man is facing charges after being accused of stealing more than $1 million US in Apple products. The suspect, who worked at a parcel delivery company, was arrested by police in January. They searched his home and found stolen electronics. Investigators say between September and January, the suspect stole numerous Apple products as they were being shipped. They allege he was selling the stolen goods online and made over $900,000. They say he used some of that money to buy a property. The 30-year-old has been released from custody as the investigation continues. Another investigation is underway following a homicide in the city's north end. Police were called just after 3 a.m. to the corner of Selkirk Avenue and Mackenzie Street, where they found an injured man outside. He was rushed to hospital in critical condition, but didn't survive. Unfilled spots for Red River College's Medical Lab Sciences program are creating concern because the number of potential grads may not be enough to address the current shortage. CBC's Gavin Axelrod explains.
The head of the group that oversees workers who perform crucial lab tests in Manitoba says there aren't enough people entering the field to meet the needs of the healthcare system. And he says the number of empty seats in Red River College's Medical Lab Sciences program is shocking and concerning. Adam Kroback says he isn't exactly sure why the program that trains lab technologists isn't full. Red River says they only received 32 applicants for the 40 available seats. Kroback thinks one of the issues is promotion. He says other professions within healthcare get more media attention and are sold better to high school students.
We need absolutely every single graduate that comes out of the Red River program to enter the profession to meet the critical shortages.
Kroback says lab techs play a key role in the province's healthcare system. They deal with samples coming in, giving reports that help healthcare providers make decisions on treatment plans and next steps in patient care. But with a shortage of those workers, Kroback worries places like rural and remote communities will suffer. He says it's already hard to recruit people in those areas, and a smaller applicant pool will restrict employers. Meanwhile, Health Minister Uzoma Asaguera says the province is looking at training pathways and making sure people in Manitoba know about the educational avenues available to them. Asaguera also says retention and recruitment remain important to the government. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Apartments in an affordable housing project planned for Winnipeg's Exchange District will now cost some renters even less. The province announced funding to make half of the units in the new Marketlands housing project rent geared to income. As the CBC's Cameron McLean reports, one housing advocate says we need more announcements like this one.
Construction on the long-delayed Marketlands project is underway on land next to Winnipeg City Hall, the former site of the Winnipeg Police Headquarters. With 9 stories, including space for arts organizations and 95 units of housing. Half of those units were previously marked as affordable. But Housing Minister Bernadette Smith announced new funding to reduce rents even more.
We will be providing an ongoing contribution to ensure that 48 of the 95 units are deeply affordable, rent-geared to income units.
Rents will be based on residents' income. The organization leading the project says studio and one-bedroom units could go as low as $285 a month. The province is also giving $1.8 million in a forgivable loan toward the construction costs. The project is being led by the University of Winnipeg Community Renewal Corporation. CEO Jeremy Reed says housing is essential to well-being.
When we have it, and with certainty, it becomes the assumed canvas in which we paint our lives. And when we don't, or we worry that we won't, it can throw our lives and that of our families into chaos.
A portion of the rent geared to income units will be dedicated to newcomers through a partnership with New Journey Housing. Azarias Brutario is a housing advisor.
The rent geared income, it helps them a lot to integrate, to pursue their education. And at the end, they get high-paid jobs.
One housing advocate called it a great announcement, but
we need many more announcements just like this one, because we have identified a need for 1,000 units annually of this type of rent geared to income housing.
The project is expected to be completed in January 2026. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Today, in question period, the NDP government was accused of silencing protesters. The PC say critics were warned about continuing to speak out. For more, we're joined by the CBC's Ian Fraze live in our newsroom. Ian, that's quite the accusation. Who exactly is making it?
The Tories tabled a heavily redacted letter. The name's been redacted too. It accuses the Labour minister of telling newcomers if they kept protesting their issues with the provincial nominee program, she'd suspend draws for more nominees. There's been a few protests in recent weeks, including on the legislature steps. Newcomers say their applications are being passed over because the NDP government is prioritizing applicants who already have family in Manitoba. The newcomers are also blaming the feds for not extending work permits. PC Labour critic Jody Byram says she's met with the letter writer alleging the threat and she trusts them.
We do not bring forward these accusations against the Labour minister lightly. These are real, frightened individuals who are worried about their future here in Manitoba and that it may be taken away from them.
Labour Minister Malaya Marcelino denies this.
That is completely false. I have never threatened folks. In fact, when people came here to protest, we invited them in. The Premier invited them into the cabinet office, the cabinet room, and he met with them and committed to them to be their champion over what's been going on.
Now, Ian, I understand interim Liberal leader Cindy Lamoureux has also weighed in. What is she saying?
She also says that she's heard that if these protests continue, future nominee draws could be suspended. Lamoureux doesn't know if the person who told her got it firsthand or heard it from someone else. But regardless, it worries her.
And to suggest that them coming out to protest, any group coming out to protest peacefully in front of the Manitoba legislature could jeopardize whether they're allowed to stay in Manitoba or not is a complete disservice and unethical.
I've spoken to another one of the protesters. They say they met with Marcelino. It went well. They heard no threats. At least for now, Brittany, we have two different sides to this story. Over to you.
All right, thanks, Ian. CBC's Ian Fraze live in the newsroom this evening. A local artist is honoring the women in her life by putting a new spin on a traditional Métis art form. CBC intern Marshall Hodgins caught up with the artist and her grandma.
My name is Bai Hussein. I'm a contemporary beadwork artist. These are 3 hand-woven portraits of Métis women that I really look up to. And then the one in the middle is my grandma. This was the very first one that I did, so it was a bit of an experiment, but I'm really proud of it. My grandma wasn't really raised with her culture either, so it's not like our family has, you know, ancestral beadwork that we've inherited. It's not like we have a ton of that material culture to rely on or that inspires us. So I like to think of these as kind of like our family's new heirlooms in a way.
I'm a little old to start into that stuff, which makes me happy that they're doing it because as they learn, I learn, you know.
This is a group show called Honoring the Work of Hands. So this is 7 different artists. All of us completed the foundation mentorship program through MAWA, which is Mentoring Artists for Women's Art.
As a younger girl, until I was actually older and married, all the Métis stuff came up, you know. I knew where my mother and father were born and raised, but never looked at it. There was no difference to me, as you know, they were just my mom and dad and my aunts and uncles, you know.
It's sort of been a reciprocal kind of process. So I got into beadwork by kind of reconnecting with the culture, working at the Manitoba Métis Federation, hanging out at the Two-Spirit Michif Local, and then becoming a beadwork artist. I've had the opportunity to meet so many other amazing artists. So it's really kind of a reciprocal process, I feel. Reconnecting led to beadwork, and beadwork has led me to further reconnection.
it's an honor, real honor. I just, it's amazing that someone would take that many hours to do something like that. I'll treasure it, you know.
Riley Lachak joins us now. That was some impressive beadwork in that. And Riley, you've been watching those storms. Impressive how much snow some areas of the province have gotten.
Yes, I have some photos to show. First off, Brittany, have a look at these. Kelvin sending these from his home in Thompson. He says that he shoveled this at 5 o'clock in the morning, and by the time he took these pictures around the early afternoon today, yes, it had all kind of blown in already. So yes, some impressive snowfall totals coming from northern Manitoba, and we couldn't let this one slide without a picture of his dogs, Nick and Ted, who I don't think are too impressed with this April dump of snow that parts of northern Manitoba got. Yes, we still have a snowfall warning in place for the Thompson region, as well as the Paw Flin Flon, which I think will get dropped as we get into the overnight hours tonight, as well as through Gillam and Shamattawa, which we'll start to see the snow taper off as we get into the day tomorrow. So looking at satellite radar right now, yes, as expected, some scattered snow flurries, a little bit of rain showers through the afternoon across southern Manitoba. Certainly, we did see our share of that here in the Red River Valley as well. Has sort of tapered off for now, but yes, we will start to see and will continue to see a few more scattered flurries as we get through the overnight hours tonight. You can see that Alberta Clipper pushing off into northwestern Ontario. Behind that, mainly cloudy start to the day. Yes, still a little bit of scattered flurry activity and the remnants of that snowfall, that accumulating snow moving off into far northern Ontario. By the time we hit the evening hours tomorrow, already starting to see some clearing towards northwestern Manitoba, even as far east as Thompson, and some scattered flurries really tapering off as we get into the afternoon hours on Friday. By the time we hit Saturday, yes, back into the sunshine across most of Manitoba. A little bit of cloud cover kind of making its way through northern Manitoba Saturday through Sunday, but by and large, we're looking at mainly sunny skies as we head through the weekend. In terms of accumulations to come, thought I'd show you this just to give you a sense, just a trace to a couple of millimeters yet for southern Manitoba. In the north, we are looking at still a little bit of snow tapering off through the overnight hours through the Paw and Flin Flon, but the bulk of that moving off into northwestern Ontario by the time we hit overnight Friday. So we're looking at another, 5 to 10 centimeters as we get through into the day on Friday. Winds, yes, some very gusty winds along the Hudson Bay coast, north gusting to about 70. In the south, we're looking at northwest winds gusting about 50 through the day, but still very strong through parts of northern Manitoba. On the freezing mark right now in Winnipeg, west winds at the moment, we'll see those winds gusting to 40 overnight tonight with some scattered flurries through the morning hours, -2 first thing in the morning, and tapering off as we get through the afternoon hours tomorrow. Into the weekend, sunshine returns for Saturday, a high of 8 degrees, 13s and 12s, Brittany, for the weekend, and that'll be nice as we anticipate Winnipeg whiteout coming later on in the weekend.
We'll be watching.
Yes.
Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
The Arizona Coyotes are officially moving to Salt Lake City. It's a moment hockey fans in that city have been dreading and a feeling Winnipeg Jets fans know all too well. This team was the original Jets before the Board of Governors approved the sale, and they moved to the desert back in 1996. Kurt Kielbach was the voice of the Jets in Winnipeg before following the team to Phoenix, where he did play-by-play until 2007. He joins me now from here in Winnipeg. Thanks for being here, Kurt.
My pleasure, Brittany.
So first off, are you surprised at the news of yet another move?
No, not really. I don't think it can be. They spent the last 2 years in a minor league facility at the University of Arizona. So it wasn't going to be something that was going to last forever. They survived there in the love and adoration of Gary Bettman, it seems, and not much else, because there have been so many things have gone so wrong with that team for so many years. You know, they went through about 5 different ownership groups, 6 if you count the time that the league took them over after Jerry Moyes filed for bankruptcy. So there's been so many misadventures in Phoenix that the idea that they're moving elsewhere is not a surprise.
So was the writing always on the wall for you?
No, actually, in the early stages, I thought it was going to work. The first 5 or 6 years, I was convinced the Coyotes were going to be a success in Phoenix. They had good ownership at the beginning, and they had a good president at the beginning. They had a pretty good staff at the beginning. Then things began to change. The club got sold first to a man who had no money, and Steve Ellman. He brought in Wayne Gretzky, and then Jerry Moyes took over because they owed him so much money it became his team. And it was just one boondoggle after another. And of course, then they tried to put a rink in Scottsdale. That was rejected. They've since tried to put one in Tempe. It was rejected. They did get accepted in Glendale, and then they didn't pay their bills. So it's no, it's not a surprise. But in early going, it did look good.
Kurt, what was it like watching that final game? I've been watching some snippets of it. We're seeing some video of it now, and it seemed like an emotional night for so many people.
Well, it would have been. There's a comparison between Winnipeg and Phoenix may sound difficult in a hockey vein, but the thing is, in Winnipeg, everybody was associated with the Jets. Even people who didn't like hockey missed the team when they were going because there was an identity that was established by the hockey team. In Phoenix, probably 90% of the people could care less. But the 10% who do, it means just as much to them as it did to the people who cared for it here. And a lot of people there are in tears, they're upset, but they're sad. Some are mad, and some are sad and mad. They're mad at the latest owner. They felt that he let them down with what went on in Glendale with not paying the bills and that sort of thing. And now the team is moving on to Salt Lake City. So it's a sad day for a lot of people down there, much as it was here, just on a smaller scale.
You just touched on Winnipeg there. What do you remember about when this team left Winnipeg and Manitoba all those years ago, the devastation here, but also that excitement in Phoenix?
Yeah, it was just one of those things. You kept thinking that they were going to survive, that somehow there was going to be a magic formula, and some buddy with a whole lot of bucks was going to come in and ride to the rescue, and the team would stay. And there was that party at Thomas Steen's house where all the rich people from Winnipeg were there, and they all committed to funds, and it seemed like it was going to happen. And then we had that get-together at the corner of Portage and Main. They were going to make an announcement at 2 o'clock that afternoon that the team was going to be saved. By the time it got to be 2:15, there'd been no announcement, and you just feel everybody go down. And there were tears. There were people who were upset, and it was like a loss of the family for some people because that was their winter activity, and that was a big part of their identity as a Winnipegger or as a Manitoban.
The team has been in Arizona for nearly 3 decades, but it feels like it can't really find its permanent home. We're moving to its third city. Do you think the fans will follow?
It was interesting yesterday. My son pointed it out to me that the Coyotes were in Phoenix longer than the Jets, including the WHA, were in Winnipeg, and I hadn't thought about that. But it has been 24 years. It was more than a honeymoon period. There were lots of times to make changes, and that was probably what the problem was. There were too many changes made. And Salt Lake City, I know what it's going to be like there. It was like that in Phoenix. It was like that in Winnipeg when the Jets came both times, the NHL arrivals. People are going to be excited. And there's no more year that can be any more fun than the first year with an NHL franchise because everybody is so enthusiastic. It's the new toy. It's the new thing to do. And where Salt Lake City is concerned, it should stay because most communities go through a rough time trying to get governments to commit to funds for the arena that inevitably has to be built. Well, in Salt Lake City, they got the Olympics coming, so that base is covered. There will be no problem building a state-of-the-art facility for the Salt Lake Salt Dogs or whatever they're going to call them.
To be determined on that name. Kurt, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Brittany.
The federal government is hoping abandoned and derelict buildings it already owns might be part of the answer to addressing Canada's housing crisis. We'll have those details coming up after the break. Stay with us. Abandoned, derelict, or run-down federal properties. That's what the government is now eyeing to help address Canada's housing crisis. It's part of this week's budget that includes a multi-billion-dollar plan to build more homes. Ashley Burke has more on the plan and the challenges.
3 decades ago, these former military homes were decommissioned, and years later, the land turned into a residential neighborhood. That work is still ongoing, and now the government wants to add another 500 homes.
We want to create an opportunity to leverage public lands across levels of government.
It's just one example. The budget has similar plans for more than a dozen unneeded Defense Department buildings.
We're very excited to talk about that.
Ottawa's mayor says he's encouraged, but the details will matter.
We'd have to go site by site and understand what each of the properties is like, what buildings are there, do they have heritage designations and other restrictions, are there other challenges on the site?
The government's also eyeing derelict Canada Post buildings like this one in Vancouver. It's among 6 being assessed for possible development.
How many government buildings do we have? If they convert them, does that really address the issue?
I'd like them to build a lot more housing and not have this 3-5 year window before people can get in.
We cannot afford housing here already. It's expensive.
In all, the government says it hopes to have 250,000 new homes built on its public property by 2031. But leasing out cheap, unused federal office buildings and land would come with some strings attached.
If we're leveraging public land, we're going to insist on certain affordability criteria.
This housing expert says that could be a deterrent for developers.
Developers don't like a whole bunch of rules and regulations that they have to comply with, and especially if it reduces their potential profit margin. So the more of those requirements that are put on by the government, the less likely they are to be encouraged to go ahead and do it.
He also says the process to build even more homes on federal land like this could take 3 to 4 years, all at a time when the Liberals are up against the election clock. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Healthcare advocates in Ontario are sounding the alarm about private clinics performing cataract surgery. They say billing by some of those clinics is taking advantage of patients. The CBC's Christine Birak has the story.
Diagnostic tests, $300 per eye.
Kate Armstrong wants her money back. Legally blind in one eye and barely seeing out of the other in 2022, she says a surgeon at a Toronto hospital told her if she went to his private for-profit clinic, she could get her cataract surgery faster. So she went and signed contracts she could barely see.
How do you ask questions when you can't read?
Armstrong signed off on $1,200 in diagnostic and measurement tests, over $3,000 for her first cataract surgery, and nearly $3,500 for the second. Money the province would have paid.
$8,000 is not what I had then, and I had to borrow it, and I had to cash in RRSPs.
Healthcare advocates say a growing number of Ontarians are in the same boat.
All medically needed cataract surgery is covered. Every hospital can handle medically needed cataract surgeries. And if you're being told anything else in a private clinic, that is not the truth.
A single cataract surgery takes roughly 7 minutes. Currently in Ontario, the longest average wait time is 3.5 months. A CBC News investigation found the Ontario government pays public hospitals about $500 per surgery. It pays private clinics up to $1,300 for the same work, so patients should not be charged. Ontario's health minister insists few patients are using their credit cards.
And the numbers show it is a very, very small group that have to have that investigation, ultimately get reimbursed when appropriate, and corrective action is taken.
The most recent Health Canada numbers show for-profit clinics charge Canadians nearly $80 million for medically necessary services.
People are blindly, excuse the pun, being ripped off.
Armstrong won't likely be reimbursed because she signed the contracts. She says the trust she once placed in doctors is gone. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
Overall, grocery costs continue to rise for Canadians. Baby formula is among those items getting more expensive. According to Statistics Canada, the price has jumped 30% in the past 2 years. As CBC's Angela McIver reports, it's forced some new parents to seek donations.
As Samantha Nicholson feeds her 5-month-old Lila, she can't help but think about the cost of formula. It's constantly on her mind.
Laying awake in bed wondering if you're going to be able to feed your kid is just, it's a gross feeling. It's very not nice, and it's just something that feels very out of your control.
Nicholson and her husband Adam have 3 children under the age of 4. All were fed with formula. Since having their first baby, the price of this liquid gold has skyrocketed.
Now it's $43.99 for the same amount that in 2021 I was paying $28.99.
Shadia Foster has experienced a similar level of shock with her Lila.
It was just really disheartening to see the high cost and the lack of variety in different formulas.
She says in the last 2 months, cheaper store-brand formula has been nearly impossible to find. And Foster often speaks to other parents who simply can't afford what's left.
There are women who are saying they'll drive anywhere to get coupons. We shouldn't have to do that. You know, we should be able to easily go out and buy formula that's affordable and feed our babies.
At the North Grove in Dartmouth, staff have also witnessed a surge in desperation. The center offers resources including food for families in need. One of the most popular requests, formula.
I would say of every 7 parents who come in asking for it, we're able to provide for 1.
Wendy Fraser says many parents choose not to eat themselves or stretch their formula supply to make it last longer. This family physician has also talked to patients who water it down.
It's a concern because the actual formula will lose its nutritional value. It's supposed to be made in a certain way to be prepared, obviously. If you water it down, you're going to lose some of that nutritional value, and that's going to adversely affect the health of the baby as well.
The North Grove is one of several organizations that received provincial money last week to help pay for nutritional programs. But while Fraser says it will certainly help, a longer-term plan is needed to address the growing overall food crisis. Angela McIver, CBC News, Dartmouth.
The U.S. and Britain have announced a new round of sanctions on Iran following its unprecedented attack on Israel last weekend. The announcements came as Foreign Minister Melanie Joly and her G7 counterparts meet in Capri, Italy. U.S. and U.K. sanctions target Iran's drone aerial vehicle production. Also targeted are leaders and entities connected to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the Defense Ministry, and the Iranian government. The new sanctions come amid concerns that Israeli retaliation against Iran or its proxies could fuel a wider war in the Middle East. Cleaning up after record rainfall hits the United Arab Emirates. We'll have that and your Manitoba forecast after the break. The cleanup is underway in the United Arab Emirates after the desert nation was hit by its heaviest rainfall on record. The UAE on the Arabian Peninsula typically sees little rainfall with its arid climate, but more than a year's worth fell in a single day on Tuesday. The downpour flooded streets and damaged buildings and other infrastructure. It also halted operations at Dubai's airport, the world's busiest for international travel. Officials expect the airport to be back to operating at full capacity in 24 hours. A year's worth of rain in 24 hours. I know that you've been watching a few systems here. We certainly didn't get that, but the north really got hit, and we saw some pictures earlier. Yeah, we did, Brittany, and we will see that start to taper off as we get through the night tonight, through the day tomorrow, but still some scattered flurries tomorrow in Winnipeg for your dog walking forecast. And yes, a little bit on the cool side as well, especially for someone like Miko. Thank you, Matt, for sending this picture. And we're looking at temperatures around the freezing mark as we get through the day for your Friday, scattered flurries through the day. So yeah, put the coat on, toque mitts, maybe the booties as well if your dog doesn't like the cold. Talk back at cbc.ca is where you can send those photos too. So we got up to about -2, -3 for much of northern Manitoba. On the freezing mark for most of the south as well. Some of these daytime highs, yes, we reached early in the morning before temperatures started to fluctuate a little bit through the afternoon hours. I wanted to show you the wind gusts from today really quickly as well, because we have seen some very strong winds, especially through northern Manitoba. Looking at some of these numbers, 60 to 65 kilometer-an-hour gusts across much of northern Manitoba. Here in the south, 40s to 50s were the numbers today, and we're going to see winds continue to be quite gusty as we head into the day tomorrow. So tonight's forecast looks like this: -7 in the Riding Mountain region with some scattered flurries. Otherwise, the region looking at -4s to -6s overnight tonight. The Red River Valley looking at -2s and -3s. Yes, some scattered flurries as well, and into northwestern Ontario, seeing some light snow even through parts of the region through tonight. In the north, snow tapers off as we get through the evening hours into the overnight period tonight. Temperatures around -10 or so, even some -13 to -17s for far northern parts of Manitoba. That snow starts to push out as we get into the day tomorrow, but even as we get into the noon hour, still along that northeastern edge of Manitoba, still seeing some steady snow that does start to taper off, and yes, a sunnier sky through the later afternoon, and even some temperatures above the freezing mark as we get through the day. And in southern Manitoba, yes, some scattered flurries even as we get through the lunch hour tomorrow. Through the afternoon, we start to see that start to taper off a little bit more, better chance, I guess, for some snow through northwestern Ontario. But if you look here through the later afternoon, around the freezing mark for western parts of the province, and Brittany, that clearing starts by the time we even hit supper time through western Manitoba. I want to say the whiteout, though, it's good. Yes. It's got to be good luck. Exactly. Thanks, Riley. You're welcome. A Quebec advocacy group says some clinics are refusing to offer mammograms for people in wheelchairs. The screening test is used to detect breast cancer. Critics see it as one of the many barriers faced by people with disabilities navigating the healthcare system. Alison Northcott has the details.
The last time Martha Tuibonire had a mammogram, she had to call 3 clinics to find one that would accommodate her wheelchair, and she left that appointment never wanting to go back.
You feel uncomfortable and you feel not welcome.
A Quebec advocacy group for people with disabilities says stories like Tuibonire's are far too common. It surveyed nearly 100 Quebec clinics that offer mammograms and says nearly half said they couldn't do the scans for patients in wheelchairs.
On 94 clinics, we found that 43% of them are saying no, we don't accept women in wheelchair.
Linda Gauthier says she last had a mammogram a decade ago, an experience she says was so humiliating she hasn't had one since.
They make me feel like guilty of not being able to stay, to stay on my feet.
But how did you feel in that moment?
I felt like second-class citizen, even third-class citizen, I felt very bad.
The Office of Quebec's health minister says all women eligible for breast cancer screening must have access to a mammogram and says a reminder will be sent to designated screening centres.
You have to be your own advocate.
Kirsten Sharp says she's never had a problem getting a mammogram in BC, which offers a special mobile screening unit, but says problems can persist and education is key.
The thing that I see that's frustrating is I have had friends who called the exact same location that I went to and they were denied access. And it just depends on who answers the phone.
In New Brunswick, one group successfully lobbied the provincial government to improve access to the scans in hospitals.
My experience was just, I cannot go back there.
Tuibanire knows she'll need another mammogram soon and hopes it won't leave her feeling as bad as the last one did. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Get ready for a Winnipeg whiteout Jet style. With just days to go before the puck drops on Game 1 of the NHL playoffs, True North Sports and Entertainment is getting ready to welcome thousands of fans inside and outside the arena. What you need to know ahead of the game, that's next. The whiteout is on its way, with the Winnipeg Jets clinching a playoff spot and securing home ice advantage for the first 2 games. Fans are pulling out their whiteout gear and getting ready for a party. Kevin Donnelly is the Senior Vice President of Venues and Entertainment for True North Sports and Entertainment and joins us this evening. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Brittany. How are you?
I'm great. Well, Kevin, you're no stranger to the whiteout parties here in Winnipeg by this time. Tickets for those first 2 games sold out within that hour. Why do you think these parties resonate with fans so much?
You know, it's a great question, but I just think that the ability to come together and just, you know, give a high five to a total stranger does connect with sort of everybody at every age. So it's about the excitement of coming downtown, of celebrating with friends and new friends. So, you know, and we're just so thrilled to be a part of it. These things have become kind of legendary. So, you know, I don't know if we could quit them if we wanted to, but they're coming and we're excited and we're looking forward to them.
I'm not sure Winnipeggers would let you guys quit them. We've had a few years of experience doing these now, 2018, that banner year. Is it really a well-oiled machine, or are there still some challenges that persist every year?
You know, every year presents sort of new twists to the element. We've included the Met Entertainment Center as part of our footprint this year. And again, timing and new participants and just, you know, it seems like we're reinventing the wheel every time, but we are learning from our past efforts for sure.
What can people expect to see in terms of road closures, heightened security possibly? What can you let us know?
Well, the security to get into the street party will be the same protocol that you go through when you enter the arena. So you go through the magnetic units, so you can't bring in, you know, anything metal, that sort of thing. The site itself, you know, large screens and an opportunity to bring a lawn chair if you want to. If you're bringing a bag that might have like a blanket or a heavier jacket, we'll just search that. No outside alcohol, of course, and it's just. Come prepared for Winnipeg, come prepared for the elements, come prepared for whether it's rain or whatever, and be ready for a good time.
We had some snowflakes out there today, so we might want to be careful for those. But does anything change for a late night game when we have those 8:45, 9 o'clock starts?
Yeah, you know, it changes, but it is the same. I mean, we've got lighting on site. I think the screens actually pop a little bit more in the evening as it gets darker around. So, you know, the answer is no, it doesn't change. We do the same thing day or night, but obviously temperature, you might get some greater swings. It might start warm and then cool off quickly as the sun goes down. So, you know, for the most part, we're ready. We ask the fans to think about what those, you know, what the climate might be like and what the changes might happen as the sun goes down. But, you know, for the most part, it's come one, come all, be ready, and go Jets, go.
Kevin, we remember that deep playoff run for the Jets back in 2018. And I remember former coach Paul Maurice talking about being in the den of the arena and watching the shots on the fans outside on the screen. So what is that feeling like for yourself, for the team, to be just seeing thousands of fans outside taking this in and just the atmosphere?
You do want to take a moment and take it all in. As one of the organizers, I definitely take a second or two every event and look back and just sort of see what's unfolding in front of me. It's quite incredible. It's quite awesome. You know, I've already had other markets reach out to us this year, you know, other NHL teams asking, are we doing them again? How are we doing them? Other markets look at us and see how they can possibly create the same kind of mayhem, controlled mayhem in their own market. So it's incredible. It's something that I think Winnipeggers should be proud of, Manitobans should be proud of, because not every market can pull this off, and we have year in, year out, and they've been fun every step of the way.
Winnipeg leading the market. Kevin, very quickly, when are we planning for Game 1? I know it hasn't been released, but you might have a little insight for us.
Well, it looks like it's going to be Sunday. We're still waiting for confirmation of the timing. That would make Game 2 possibly Tuesday, so details still to come, but we'll be ready, but we think it's going to be Sunday at some point. So we're asking everybody to just be patient while we wait for the league to make the final determination.
Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your time.
All right.
A windy and damp day in downtown Winnipeg and really across much of southern Manitoba. Riley Lachuk back for their 7-day forecast after the break.
Well, scattered flurries, maybe some scattered showers through your Friday. Starting at -2 tomorrow, northwest winds gusting to 40 by noon. We hit the freezing mark, and yes, staying around the freezing mark. That's why I say wet flurries or some wet showers tomorrow. We do start to see the winds dying off by the time we get to late afternoon. Normal high for this time of the year is 12. Saturday, we're looking at a high of 8, and yes, we're looking at a 13-degree high for what could be a whiteout party number 1 on Sunday. 12 for Monday, and the possibility of the second party happening on Tuesday, maybe with a high of 9 degrees, and Wednesday a high of 12. So we'll wait and see when we get those first 2 games.
Those don't look too bad, though.
Not too bad for highs. Some traffic cops in India, though, have found a way to beat the summer heat.
Here's tonight's Daily Lift. Well, check out these custom air-conditioned helmets. Police in Western India are now required to wear the cutting-edge headgear amid soaring summer temperatures. Designed with unique features to help cope with the oppressive heat and stave off dehydration.
Now, they keep a person cool for up to 8 hours at a time and feature a charging point and a protective sun visor as well. From April to June, parts of the country now see as many as 20 days where temperatures are between 40 and 42 degrees Celsius. That's up from the usual 4 to 8 in recent years.
Well, you know, you got to do what you got to do to keep cool.
I feel like those could be useful on some of those hot summer days here, too. I wouldn't say
Maybe.
no.
We'll see. We don't need them anytime soon, though.
I wouldn't say no to that, though.
Have a wonderful night. We'll see you here
See you tomorrow.